This is the Chapter 3 Stigma Podcast. This podcast was created to be there for any individual who feels like they are at a low point in life and are confused, seemingly alone, and helpless in their situation. I am a recovering alcoholic, and I felt this way too, until I sat across the table from another addict who shared his story and made me realize that I was not alone in my struggles. My life was saved by this realization, and I hope to help anyone struggling by sharing my story to show you that you are not alone and that life can contain unbelievable riches and meaning. Welcome. I am glad you are here. Hey all, welcome to another episode of the Chapter 3 Stigma Podcast. So we've wrapped up the set of episodes and series on really doing a deep dive into the both outpatient and inpatient rehab experience. And we left off on the last episode kind of talking about what a discharge plan and what working a program to stay in active recovery actually starts to look like from the first few days onward. And what I thought would be a really helpful next step to take with the podcast is to actually give some insight to folks who are out there listening about what a typical, or at least in my experience, what a typical AA meeting looks like. I can just say confidently that before entering myself into rehab, I don't think I would have had the guts to step into an AA room alone. And I think one of the primary reasons and excuses that I would have used and that I have used in the past is I didn't know what to expect. And so therefore I was fearful and nervous about it, about the idea of it. And it just felt like a very unapproachable situation. And so obviously the program or the organization is called Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'm going to give kind of a high level overview of what a typical meeting structure looks like. So I'll key in on some of the readings and just try to sort of paint the picture of what a typical flow or meeting flow looks like, so that if you are out there considering taking this step, I think having this type of information available to you might cut into some of that fear or excuse making that you could find yourself in right now. So what I did, I've said this before on this podcast and through the newsletter, but I attend quite regularly a morning meeting that is about 20 minutes away from my home here. I drive past numerous meetings to attend the particular meeting spot that I go to, and I do so because of what I'm about to get into right now. Like from a meeting flow perspective, it really just resonates with me a lot, and it's a very meaningful experience for me. But also the other aspect to it is the people. And I think one of the most imperative points that I would make to anyone that is looking to enter into recovery or that are on the road to recovery in their first days, weeks, months, is do not be afraid to shop around and to modify and sort of build your program around what works for you and what resonates for you. I have gone to AA meetings that I didn't go back to because, or I didn't try again, I should say, because it just didn't hit and it just didn't feel right on the first time. So with that, here are the notes that I have taken from a meeting that I attended just this past Tuesday, October 17th. Again, this is going to be focused like very high level overall flow. and I'll go into, again, some of the key readings. So just from the onset, like what should you expect when you walk up and when you approach an AA meeting? Generally, you'll have some sort of signage about, the AA meeting space. It's not like huge or flashy by any means, but usually there's some sort of indicator of an AA program or meeting that occurs in this space. This Tuesday morning, and all of this that I'm about to go into is very typical of the meeting that I go to. There were roughly like 35 to 40 people in the space. There were both men and women, ages like 18 to 80 plus years old. Tons of different like ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic status, just a huge amount of variety. There was kind of your typical pre-meeting gathering that happens outside of the meeting space. People will just kind of stand around, sometimes smoke and just chat before the meeting kicks off. So at the kickoff of the meeting, there is a chairperson for every single meeting. So this is a member of, well, I shouldn't even say member, but it's a consistent person that shows up every single time the meeting occurs. And so for my particular meeting, it runs every single day of the week. So we have 7 chair people for this particular meeting. So if you're a chairs person, you take one day of the week and you chair that meeting. Really all you're doing as a chairs person is just kind of facilitating the flow of the meeting and getting the topic kicked off for that particular day. So the chairperson kicks off the meeting. They will introduce themselves. And for this particular meeting, how we start is a reminder of what is called the third tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the third tradition states that the only requirement for being a member of AA is to have a desire to stop drinking. And then the ask for the group is to then confine and constrain all discussions to issues pertaining to alcohol. So that's the way that the meeting is kicked off. This is an open meeting, so people don't have to they don't have to announce themselves as alcoholics. So what I recommend to people when they go to their first AA meeting is when it comes to the point of having to introduce yourself or state your name, just say your name and that you are there to learn. And so in my instance, it would be, I'm Kyle, and I'm just here kind of testing things out, or I'm here to learn. That is, of course, if you are still uncomfortable with just stating that you're an alcoholic or an addict. So then after the third tradition reminder, the chairperson requests a moment of silence for the alcoholic who still suffers. So we take a pause for about 20, 30 seconds, and then we go into the serenity prayer. And we do this as a group. So the serenity prayer is really imperative in the recovery space. And it is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Next up, in this particular meeting is that a volunteer will read actually a fairly long reading to kick off the meeting, and it's called How It Works. And it is quite literally taken from the Alcoholics Anonymous book, chapter 5. And it's the first kind of 2.5 to 3 pages of that. I have actually elected to just read the first 2 paragraphs and the last paragraph for you to kind of show you how it is kicked off and then bookended. So here to chapter 5 now. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. Though there are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. So I'm going to step out of the reading right now. The really important thing and the takeaway that I get from this during each meeting is just highlighting the fact that in that opening paragraph alone, the word honesty is hit on 3 times. And so it's just a really powerful and helpful way to kind of center and kick off the meeting as you know, we go to start into the sharing process. Anyway, the reading continues on. It actually goes through each step and outlines all 12 steps. That will be something that I look at coming back to here in a few weeks or so. Now, that being said, I'm going to go to the close of this reading. So back to the book. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Again, kind of exiting the reading now. I highlighted that just because, again, it is a passage and full of statements that just really center me in the meeting space and in the meeting time on the fact that throughout this whole process of living my life in active recovery, you know, really centering on the concept and the idea of progress instead of perfection. So again, that is the reading concludes. And these are volunteers who will come up and grab these printed out readings. It's purely voluntary. So, you know, if you are a first time attendee of one of these meetings, shouldn't feel like you're going to be put on the spot or anything like that. You know, should you happen to stumble on a meeting that does a lot of readings like this. Next, after reading through how it works, we recite and read as an entire group what's called the 3rd step prayer. And at least in my meeting space and a lot of the meeting spaces that I have attended in the past, generally these step prayers are printed out on note cards. They're super short, like 8 to 10 lines or something like that. I personally am horrendous at memorization. It's kind of a miracle that I've memorized the Serenity Prayer at this point, but that kind of shows you how powerful that one truly is. I will admit I do not have these step prayers memorized, and so when we read these 3rd step prayers, I'm always grabbing the printout. But I won't go into the actual 3rd step prayer, but just for reference, the literal 3rd step of the AA step work is this. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So the prayer kind of encapsulates that. Then it goes back to the chairperson, and the chairperson will ask and request if there is anyone in attendance of that meeting that has less than 30 days in recovery who would like to introduce themselves. This is a point where kind of newcomers are allowed to introduce themselves, to speak up, and just basically, again, all they have to do is state their name. At this time in the meeting, the chairperson will ask if anyone would like to have a 24-hour chip. And this is just a small plastic coin that just has basically the AA symbology printed on it and some language around like one day at a time. I have seen people who have months and years in recovery elect to take a 24-hour chip during this offering. Maybe they are going through a particularly rough patch in their life, with their career, with a spouse, something like that, and they just want the reminder. So anyway, like anyone who wants to can walk up, take a coin. The way it's run at our meeting, like chairperson hands it over to them, gives them a hug. They get a round of applause, and then the tradition in this meeting group is that the individual actually passes their coin around the room. So they'll hand it off to someone in the space. And then kind of the idea is you can pray over the coin. You can pass a blessing. You can put, I guess, voodoo witchcraft on it, whatever. Everyone is given the opportunity to kind of, I don't know, like put some energy into that coin. And so with that, after the intro of folks under 30 days, the chairperson again requests anyone who is an out-of-town visitor to introduce themselves, just purely so we can get to know you a little better, is kind of the prompt. And so anyone from out of town is able and requested to state their name. Everyone, again, just kind of gives them a warm welcome. Then the chairperson moves on to AA birthdays and milestones. So these are the significant recovery milestones. So you hit a year in recovery, like there's a chip that you receive. And again, the process is similar to receiving the 24-hour chip, where you'll go up front, you'll be handed the chip, give the chairperson a hug, pass your coin around. The one unique thing about when there are birthdays or milestones is that the chairperson, once all the birthday and milestones have been recognized and chips have been handed out, the chairperson will ask each individual that celebrated or was celebrating that day this question: how did you do it? And that is kind of the prompt for anyone who is celebrating a milestone to jump in and kind of detail their story and, their progress and their learnings and things like that. And a lot of, I have just gained a ton of knowledge and understanding and connection with individuals through these shares. So AA birthdays are always really special when they happen in the space. Then the chairperson will finally kind of conclude the opening ceremonies, I guess, by having every single person in our meeting space introduce themselves. So we go around the room, state your name. This is where you get the classic, good morning, my name is Kyle, I'm an alcoholic. Yes, it happens all the time in these AA meetings. I know that's kind of the tongue-in-cheek way of thinking about these groups or these sessions, but it totally happens. And I've detailed it before in my story. There is something very empowering and powerful about saying your name and stating yourself as an alcoholic, because the stigma drops away and the sting drops away. The more and more that you repeat it, it just loses the word and the concept, and the fact that you are an alcoholic kind of loses its grip and control over you. So the intros are done around the room, and then one last reading before getting into the actual kind of meat of the session or the meeting is the reading of a Sanskrit proverb. And I will be honest, I need to look into kind of the background and details on this particular passage, but it has become one of the most meaningful and impactful readings that I continually come back to and think on. And during this specific 30-second time frame when it's being read in the AA meeting, I just get this incredibly profound connection and just feeling associated with appreciating the day. So to the proverb here, and so again, this is something that a volunteer will read. Here it goes. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lies all, the realities and verities of existence, the bliss of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of power, for yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Again, I just really find myself centering in and just thinking about the gift of today. And another part of that passage that is just so imperative and impactful is just like how incredible and wonderful action is. And that's one of the aspects of living a life in recovery. I have not in my time seen anyone who has done it passively. And so this idea around being action oriented, and again, that's why I'm very deliberate about stating my life and my journey as living in active recovery, because it does require daily and consistent action. Finally, after all these readings and intros, we get to the meat of the meeting, and that is on the topic or sharing. And so in the case of Tuesday's meeting, the topic that someone just had, it's really just like an open thing. Like the chairperson will just ask, does anyone have a burning desire? Does anyone have something they want to talk about? Or does anyone have a topic in particular that they want addressed? And someone from the back, and it was actually a really cool experience, because in this case, it was someone who has been coming very passively to the meetings, and they spoke up and they said, I don't have a ton to share on it, but I want to hear what people have to say about service and finding freedom in recovery. And so with that, it kind of just launched the meeting, and individuals are allowed to share as they please. If there is like a huge pause and moment of silence, like that is where the chairperson can step in and call on, like a trusted volunteer to expand and share their thoughts on the topic. You do not have to stay on topic by any means. If you have something that's really pent up or bothering you, you have every right to go off. And I've just really viewed, I'm fairly active with regards to sharing. And my view of it is like, it's very in line with kind of the work associated with this podcast and also with the newsletter. I'm largely still just trying to sort out everything that's going through my mind. Like I've had a lot happen in the last 18 months, and extending that into, my fight with alcoholism over the past 12 years. And so I'm still trying to sort things out. And so when I share in the AA meetings, sometimes I'm sharing actually looking for critiques and criticisms of how I'm viewing something, or maybe I genuinely need help with a situation in life. I'm not shy about offering those up as opportunities to help refine and sharpen my thinking. And then there's just other times where a topic like really speaks to you and you feel that you have something to say. And by saying it, who knows, maybe you're going to help someone else, or at the very least, you can help yourself. So that sharing goes on until, in this case, like 30 minutes have expired. So that whole process that I just described was 30 minutes, including the sharing. What we do in our meeting then is we do a break 30 minutes in. What they do is they will come around with the coffee. Again, one of the service positions within AA is to be kind of like coffee steward. And so someone will, have a few pots ready to go. Everyone gets refills. They pass a basket for voluntary donations. And those donations strictly are for operating expenses. Again, from a service standpoint, there are some finance roles that people can step up and volunteer for. But again, I'm throwing a few bucks in every meeting or just, I donate fairly regularly. And anyway, and then someone will come along, and as the meeting sort of comes back together, someone does another reading to get everyone centered back into the sharing portion. And the reading that is done at this 30-minute mark is called the Promises. And I'm going to read that one. So To the reading. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. So that closes out the promises reading. And again, just going back to kicking off the sharing session. About 5 minutes to the close of the meeting, the chairperson will kind of make a call on when the last share is done, and they will call an end to the meeting. They request if anyone has any closing announcements to do so at that point. And then there are a few final prayers or meditations that are done to close the meeting. The first one is the 7th step prayer. Again, it's like printed out on a chart or on a sheet right at your seat, more or less. Again, I don't have this memorized, but the 7th step in the 12 steps of AA is this: humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Him alluding to God or your higher power. After reading the 7th step prayer, somebody, again a volunteer, will read a vision for you. Or I should say it's a reading called A Vision for You. It is actually from the final chapter, the final page of kind of the original Alcoholics Anonymous book. So I'm going to read this one as well. To the book. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. So with that, the meeting concludes, and then the end note to the conclusion and the official wrap up of the meeting. And honestly, one of the reasons I kept coming back to this specific meeting is that everyone stands up at the end. Everyone circles up. Everyone holds hands, and we do a final prayer, and we recite the Lord's Prayer. I don't know why. Like, again, I've even through my time in like really reconnecting with and developing a personal relationship with God, that doesn't mean I don't have issues with the religious organizations that do exist and that are run by man here in this world. However, for whatever reason, the Lord's Prayer in particular has always just like really stood out to me and been incredibly powerful and profound. And so the fact that this particular meeting that I found ends itself and wraps up with the Lord's Prayer, it's just like really powerful for me. And again, this is why everyone needs to shop around for their particular AA meeting that really resonates with them. Like this aspect of it for me, like really, really sold me on continuing to come back. And so that's it. With that, the meeting wraps up. You know, there's conversation that happens. A lot of people will exclaim, especially once you have time. Well, you don't have, that's not like a prereq to have time. But the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting can generally be even more powerful than the meeting itself. So in a lot of cases, this being a morning meeting, if there's some folks who don't have to go running off to work, sometimes they'll grab coffee or brunch or breakfast together, and just kind of continue and carry on the discussion. I know some people that follow up the meetings with like a study of the Alcoholics Anonymous book or a study of other books and texts pertaining to recovery and alcoholism and addiction. And so that's that. I mean, I'll be honest, like a lot of times I'm running out of the door at the conclusion of the meeting so I can fight traffic and get back home to hop on my work calls. But there are times that I hang out, have a few chats with folks, or make a point to show up early so I can talk to individuals. And yeah, that's it. That's how a meeting progresses. Again, for me, the benefits I genuinely enjoy and can like meditate on and really connect with a lot of the readings that this particular meeting elects to go through each time. And I have just found the ability to like really sit and think and find myself like centered and present. I have found it extremely easy to do in this particular meeting that I go to. And I really find that to be one of the most valuable aspects of, the entire organization of Alcoholics Anonymous. I can genuinely feel like I can connect with, and again, just sort of like sit in and think about my relationship with God and like the journey that we've been on the last 18 months. And in a big way, like I feel very close with my daughter, Lucy, as I sit through these AA meetings, because she was such an imperative part of me finding that place and finding my way to continue on this road of active recovery. And, through our whole story and struggle with Lucy, the people in that room showed up for us in ways that I could not ever even imagine. And so again, if you are listening to this and you're just questioning and wondering and creating excuses and putting up barriers as to why it doesn't make sense for you to approach or go to your first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, I hope that by laying out kind of the general flow of a meeting, it breaks down some of those perceived barriers. And again, without being overly brash, I hope you're able to look at your situation and truly make an assessment of if you're crafting and creating excuses and reasons just to avoid a little bit of discomfort. So the benefit and the value that I've found in going to these meetings is just been incredible and profound. And again, there is no greater work and no greater action that I have ever taken in my life than those acts that keep me in active recovery. So that's all I've got this week. Take care. Love you all. If you enjoyed this podcast, share it with others or give us a rating on your channel of choice. My hope is that my story can help others in their struggles with addiction or any other aspects of life that they feel could be bettered. You can follow us on social media at Chapter 3 Stigma on Instagram and YouTube. I cannot solve your problems for you, but I can listen. If you want to reach out with a message through one of those channels, I will respond and let you know that you are not alone. All the best, you are loved, and life is worth every struggle and bit of suffering you have to endure. Until next time, all the best.